You are a self-described socialist. What is your vision of socialism in America?
Well, my belief is, my very strong belief is that this nation, because of its incredible wealth, its technology, its natural resources, in fact, has the capabilities of providing a decent standard of living for every man, woman, and child. And that's just not, at this point, a utopian vision. I think that's a concrete economic reality if we used our resources rationally, and if the productive capabilities of the system were used to provide decently for all the people rather than to make certain people extremely rich. The distribution of wealth in this country, as you may or may not know, is one of the most unfair and distorted in the entire world.
But how can you practically change that very uneven distribution?
Well, I think you can change it politically. I think you change it through tax laws. I think you change it through public ownership of significant parts of the economy. I think you change it by providing what every industrialized country in the world is doing, for example, is decent health care for its people through national health programs. I think you do it by providing decent housing for its people through public involvement in housing. We have the resources to do it.
But how can you believe in socialism as an idea when people in socialist countries don't believe in it?
Well, I think that's perhaps a debatable issue, and I think that has to do with what the kinds of socialist policies that have been developed by the socialist countries.
Do you see any country today in the world, any country which is socialist?
I think that there are different countries at different levels. For example, if you talk about what's going on in Sweden today, is Sweden having any problems? Of course they're having problems. But you know, one can't isolate a situation and say, look, socialism has failed over there compared to what? Do you know that in the United States of America today, the average married couple can no longer afford a home? They can't afford a home. The average standard of living of the average American person, working person, has declined. Our manufacturing capabilities are being ruptured all over this country right now. We're losing millions of manufacturing jobs. So I think in many ways there are problems all over this world, but I'm not sure that many people are aware of the severe economic problems that are existing in our country as well.
But aren't the poor and unprivileged in America too few to really make a revolution, to change the system?
When we talk about what goes on in the United States, I don't know that many of our European friends understand that the vast majority of poor people in America don't vote. They do not vote. 80–90% of poor people have given up on the political process. Then if you're talking about the lower middle class, working people, the majority of those people don't vote. On national elections, we're lucky often if we have half of the people coming out to vote. On state elections, local elections, it's often much less than that. Now here in Burlington, we do very, very well. And we get about half of the people out to vote. In other communities in our state and throughout New England, you might get 20% of the people out to vote, 10% of the people out to vote on occasion. So I think one of the major problems that we have in our country is that the political situation is so controlled by people with big money that working people and poor people have given up on the process.
But what does it take to make the two major parties care?
Well, I don't know, and I don't really care. I'm not part of the two major parties.
But do you see a possibility of a third party in America? Is that really a practical option?
Well, this is an issue that's been debated for about 100 years in the United States of America. And there are those people like myself who do see that that is the future. There are other people who think that one should work within the Democratic Party. My experience in working within the Democratic Party is that it's useless. Not my experience, I haven't, but observing good people who have. Ultimately, I think what you find out on the national level and on the state level is that the people who control the Republican Party are not very different from the people who control the Democratic Party.
Where are you going from here? Well, you have another period as a mayor, but do you have any ideas about your own political future?
No, I really don't. This is what I told the people. This is the fourth election that I've won. I will then serve 8 years, and that will be all.
So we won't see you in Congress sometime?
Well, you won't see me here in the mayor's chair if you come back 2 years from now.
So you don't think America has turned for good to the right?
Oh, no, absolutely not. I think what there is, though, is in America a much greater political ignorance, if you like, than Europeans can really understand. For example, the whole issue of class analysis. To a large degree, the system here in America has diluted that significantly, so that many of the trade unions are extremely conservative. Half of the white American trade unionists, for example, voted for Ronald Reagan for president. We don't have a long and militant trade union history as many of the European countries, where socialism and labor unions
Go together.
have been working together for 100 years. In America, that's not the case, and that's unfortunate. We have a very, very powerful system, a ruling class system, and it's very different than the European system. It's not as rigid. You know, we don't have a king and a queen, but what you have is people who own the television stations. Very, very powerful, and very heavy degree of censorship. For example, just comparing American television with Canadian television, and we're only 50 miles south of Canada, is night and day. Class issues are not allowed to be talked about on American television or radio. The nature of the newspapers are more and more concentration of large corporations owning the newspapers in various cities. So in terms of the information that people are getting out, for example, just last night I was watching Canadian television, which we get down here. There was a program on Cuba. We're not allowed to see those programs here in the United States.